some short words about me. I have 13 years of experience from the information security business, all of them from the same company, Mnemonic, but I've been working within different fields of information security, different departments in Mnemonic. The first 6 years I was working hands-on with technical day-to-day analysis of security events that we saw in our security monitoring systems from our customers. I was also managing firewalls and proxies and different operating systems. Then I moved on to our governance, risk and compliance department, where I was doing risk management, management for hire, and also a lot of audit of outsourcing vendors. Now I'm back at our MSSP department as head of log analysis. The agenda for today is, why do I need to know? Am I not just transferring all the risk to my outsourcing vendor when I outsource? What do I need to know? What do I need to know about myself, my objectives? And what do I need to know about the vendor? I'm going to tell a little bit about what we've actually seen out there when we're doing audits. And I'm going to wrap it up by summarizing what I see as the success factors for a healthy outsourcing relationship. So, why do you need to know? As outsourcing and cloud computing is getting ever more popular, there are many performers out there. Many vendors, many forms, many sizes. And one size does definitely not fit all in this matter. We've seen that the large, serious vendors can also make very large mistakes. A couple of years ago, I was working as a CISO for one of our clients during summer when their regular CISO was on vacation. This client had outsourced all their infrastructure and all their server management to one of the world's largest infrastructure vendors. Among other things, this vendor managed one of their FTP servers that was hosting and transferring sensitive financial information to 3 of their partners. At the same time I was CISO, another department in Mnemonic was doing pen testing of all of this client's externally facing services. This infrastructure vendor had a global dedicated Linux team and was, you should think that they had good routines and procedures for managing Linux systems. But suddenly one of the guys doing pen testing was calling me and saying, we found an open SSH server and we've rooted it. And the information we see on here seems to be critical financial information. And it wasn't really a sophisticated attack. I could call it brute force, but I think they actually matched the first try with the username being root and the password being root. So quite easy. After digging into this, it was obvious that they showed very many signs of poor system administration. They had been troubleshooting the server half a year back. And to ease the troubleshooting, they had enabled the SSH server, enabled remote root login. They had opened the firewall for SSH from not only the 3 partners, but from the whole world. So it was pretty open. In the contract, this vendor said that they were supposed to be able to detect security incidents. But we saw that there were no log analysis, no other detection mechanisms like IDS or something like that. And our guys, when they went through the logs of the system, saw that 75 days before they were actually able to root it, there was a successful login from the University of Shanghai and also a rootkit installed. So they were owned. If our client had done a better job at actually checking what was behind the text in the agreement, saying we are able to detect security incidents, actually following up on what kind of log analysis do you do, what kind of detection mechanisms do you have, and following up, not just taking everything that's standard for good. They could be able to see that there are some lacks. There could also be laws and regulation that could limit your choices. For example, here in Norway, you're obliged by law to control how your processor is actually handling your data if you outsource personal data. It could also be you need to be compliant to PCI DSS, and that everything changes when you outsource. So that's important to know. Basically, everything you don't know will give you an extra risk. So what do you need to know? First and foremost, you need to know why you outsource. And that sounds really obvious, but experience shows that it's not. For example, there can be many factors that decide if you're going to outsource. It could be you have lack of time. It could be you need extra resources. It could be you need extra specific skills. And what your objectives could or should drive what vendor you choose. For example, will you set out your firewall management to your general infrastructure vendor? Or will you set it out to a specific security company, like, for example, Mnemonic? The cost will be different, but the quality will also be different. So you need to know what's important for you. If you set out your firewall management to a more general company, you probably need to have the skill sets in your own company as well, because then you're hiring a pair of hands, more or less. Or else, your rule base will look like a Swiss cheese after a while. You need someone to actually qualify the changes you ask for. Also, if you're trying to save time or cost, I've seen agreements with outsourcing vendors that they have an SLA of 14 days to implement the firewall change. If you really need a change to be done right away, it's really expensive. So that's also, it's important to read the mechanisms in the contract to see, is it really that cheap? If I need very fast changes very often, this will be quite expensive. So, could be differences. It's also important to do a business impact analysis when it comes to the information being stored at the vendor. What if unauthorized people get access to the information? What if competitors see the information? Could you lose money? Could it be bad for PR? What if unauthorized people change the information? Would you make bad decisions based on the wrong grounds? What if the service is unavailable? Are you still able to do your job? Even the large cloud services like Azure and Amazon have service interruptions, has had that during the last couple of years. So you need to know, how am I dependent upon this? And of course, what laws and regulation? Here in Norway, the Personal Data Act is saying that the customer is responsible for the data when you outsource. So even if you set your services out to a vendor, if they're processing your personal data, you're still the one that's responsible. I know Marta Eike is coming to talk a bit later, yeah. She knows this much better than me. I'm going to touch up on it also, I think. But I think it's important to mention also when you're actually choosing a vendor. You're obliged to do a risk assessment to document why you're actually processing this personal data, to do a risk assessment on the probability and the consequences of a security breach, and also to do regular security assessments. And you should have an agreement stating why and what they're supposed to do with the personal data. The importance is actually just decrease as much uncertainty as possible. The more you know, the less surprises. It's really important to use time and resources before you enter into the contract, because that will save you a lot of time and money and ensure you sleep for the years to come. I see that a lot of our customers has chosen the vendor because it's a large known company and this other large Norwegian company is using them, it must be the right way to go. But that's never the answer. You must know yourself, you must know your drivers, and that's what's important. What's the competence level of the personnel handling your information, for example? If you've outsourced your infrastructure based on Cisco, do they have the right amount of personnel certified? Do they have the right level of status at the vendor so that they can get product support as fast as possible? What is your priority at the vendor? If the shit hits the fan, you want to know where in line you are to get your systems up and running again. Also, when it comes to cloud computing, the whole concept is that you're actually sharing the platform with someone else. What kind of access how many privileged users are there that could see your information, for example? So it's important to know. And of course, also after the contract is signed, it's important to follow up on your vendor, do regular reviews, ensure that your contract gives you the right to do regular reviews, and also, as Maria was talking about, ensure that you actually are able to get the logs, that you're able to go in and actually do incident handling if there is an incident, and that they're actually obliged to report incidents. Make sure that they report on the status of the service. If you're able to get them to report on the metrics you need reporting on, that's great. Some of the vendors will suit their reports to your needs. Make sure you read the reports. Also seen at a lot of our customers that they get reports monthly from all their vendors, but they never read anything before something goes wrong. If they had read the reports every month, they could have taken things at a much earlier stage. And of course, regular status meetings. I know there's a lot of contracts that said that the customers are able to initiate a meeting if they want, but since everyone has so much to do all the time, there's never a status meeting. I recommend that you have regular meetings every month or every quarter, something like that. And last but not least, be sure to know what in-house capabilities you still need. Even though you outsource, you can't just forget that area within your own business. So I'm going to speak a little bit about the cases we've seen. The first one was actually an audit of an outsourcing vendor here in Stavanger. One of our clients were doing due diligence before they were outsourcing a solution for publishing of market material. The risk in this specific case was that competitors could get access to future prices and campaigns. So that was a financial risk and possible reputational risk for our customer. What we do when we do these audits is that we go out to the customer, we do interviews, we assure that the customer has the right people present. That is both management or architects, but also the people actually doing the day-to-day tasks. So not only the people that knows how things are supposed to work, but also the people that actually do the work. And we got to this place and we had a lot of findings this time. The first thing we saw was that they used a regular key that can be copied at every street corner, both for the office entrance and for the server room. It was the same key. It was also no CCTV, no alarm system, and there were regular windows in every part of the building. It was also really easy to climb up outside the building, and there was this little plateau right outside the server room. It was really nice place to climb up and just smash the windows. You can get in. You can get the server that was actually tagged with client names. So it's really convenient for an attacker. All the network communication between the data center and the internal office network was in clear text. They didn't bother with the encrypting part. No VPN. Wireless access was a common VPA password, static, and you got right into the internal network. And they had no business continuity plans at all. So no plans if something got wrong. They never tested it. Yeah. Of course, they didn't want to store their information at that vendor. So the result was they actually bought the application because the development group was quite good. But they decided to in-house the application and actually store the information at their own site, controlling the access to the information. The next part was a company on Wall Street in New York. It was one of our financial clients. They're doing due diligence before implementing a new electronic trading venue. The business side of our client were really eager to have this application, and they had more or less bought it before we got in the picture. But luckily, at this client, they had routines that said that whenever our information is to be stored at another vendor site, we're always going to do a security assessment, no matter how much you wanted it and how far you've gotten in the run. The risk here was disclosure of transaction data, risk of enabling fraud, which was seen as a high financial risk at this customer. We actually went on site with the same message as we had given to the one in Stavanger. These are the people we need to speak to. We need both the people that know how it's supposed to work and the people that's doing the day-to-day job. And they assured us, yes, all the right people are going to be present when you come over here. And we were 2 people from Mnemonic and 2 people from our client, so it's a quite expensive mission. Went over to the USA for almost a week. When we came over there, the only people meeting us was the CEO and the CTO, and they were supposed to answer our every question. And of course, they don't know how things are actually done. They know how they want things to be done, or what is the ideal situation. So we had to go back home, and we said we weren't able to do the audit, but the business side still really wanted this application. So we decided to send them a self-assessment form to see if maybe it's just some kind of communication mistake. So we sent them a self-assessment form with the questions that we were more or less going to go through in our interviews to see if they were better in written communication. And I've taken some examples from that text, and the answers they've given are exactly what they answered us. I've not edited them at all. The first thing we asked them was, describe the routines to remove employee and third-party access rights at change of roles or at exit. Their answer was, no one has access to server rooms. I find that a little bit hard to believe. This happens either early in the morning before opening hours or immediately. They're actually native English speakers, so I don't know. Are the system software and security controls, such as firewalls, configured to the highest security settings or otherwise hardened before release to production? Describe. Since software testing and configurations are completed in-house, we know our configurations and we know there isn't any vulnerabilities when released. I think a lot of us in this room would be out of a job if that was true for everyone doing system development. Describe how systems are monitored in order to discover failures, downtime, load, and capacity issues and security incidents. Camera, sensors, all connected to CEO's PC and smartphone, as well as to our head of security and HR administrator, which all have 24/7, 365 capabilities. Those poor bastards. If there's no patch available, or if there is a decision to apply the patch, please describe the controls that are implemented to ensure information security. For example, do you turn off services, or how do you handle it? This hasn't happened yet. Describe how lessons learned from testing and actual incidents were business continuity plans has been carried out are incorporated into the BCP. We found holidays had become the optimum time to test and originally struggled to meet our requirements plan. I don't even know what that means. That was the only answer. Of course, even the business side decided that we can work with these people. The lack of ability to communicate and cooperate is far too low, so there were no contract signing. That said, that's not always the result when we do audits. There's a lot of good things out there. What we usually see when we do audits like this is that this is improving the relationship between the vendor and our client. So both sides learn, and they get another relationship than if they've just signed the contract and been done with it. We also see a lot of our clients, since we are an MSSP, some of our clients are doing quality and security assessments of us. And even though it's a bit scary sometimes, it's always a good exercise. We learn more about ourselves, and we see that we go out of those sessions with a better customer relationship. So I'm gonna wrap it up with summarizing what I think is the success factors of a healthy relationship. The most important part is know yourself. Do a business impact analysis, know your objectives, know your risks, know what kind of business events should never happen so that you can ensure that this contract is not enabling those events. Be engaged, be a good customer, follow up on the contract both before the signing and during the relationship. Demand regular feedbacks on status. Be sure that they scale. If you intend to grow, you need to know that your vendor also can grow with you. And last but not least, be sure to have an exit plan. These relationships are more or less like marriage. Everything is very good at the start. You can't imagine the love will never end, but all relationships cannot last. Thank you.